Greetings, travelers. I'm Josh.
And I'm Kahi.
And we're the Genshin
Genshin
guys. Welcome all. This podcast is for fans of Genshin Impact, the mobile game made by HoYoverse, formerly known as MiHoYo. Here we talk about our opinions, experiences, and dreams about Genshin Impact. We have new episodes every Monday, so if you like our show, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Music, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to the podcast. So, Kahi, before we get started, how you been?
I have been binge watching a lot of anime. I finally subscribed to High Dive. I finally found out that there's a bunch of shows that I was expecting on Crunchyroll because they keep tweeting about it, but it's actually on some other websites, so that's kind of weird. So I just went to the other website, and it's actually pretty good. I was watching the rest of Licorice Recoil. I got to finish Call of the Night, which is amazing, and the ending theme song is stuck in my head and has been on repeat on my phone for an entire week. Other than that, nothing much other than Genshin and my usual escapades in the games. What about you, Josh? How have you been?
Nice. So I watched on Caught Up to She-Hulk, the Marvel show on Disney Plus. It's a very, very interesting ending. A lot of fourth wall breaking in that show. And then I've also been playing a lot of Overwatch, Valorant, and mostly though Genshin. And so I also recently finished on the Switch this like indie game that's kind of like Castlevania called Toho Lunar Nights. It's like a Toho themed, like one of the Toho themed Castlevania-ish like Metroidvania games. And it was a very, very interesting game. Like you have the ability to stop time. Very fun. I beat it recently, and I'm looking for my next endeavor. I'm also really hyped for Persona 5 Royal coming out pretty soon on Switch. So I'm gonna play that through. I haven't played Royal yet. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. Just that, and then streaming Genshin for I streamed some other games to take a break, but I streamed for 8 hours straight for the past 2 days. So it was like full-time job stuff. And obviously if I was getting paid like full-time job money, it'd be awesome, but I'm not. So it's like eventually, but at least for now, yeah, it was fun, and I've still got so much to do. So, but we'll talk more about that when we talk about our weeks in Genshin. But great. So let me get started with today's topics, which is our weeks in Genshin, of course. Genshin news. The Archon Quest is going to be our main topic for today. And we're also going to talk about the banner, right? In a section we're calling Banner Banter, which is our impressions of the current banner and the characters in it. So we're going to talk about Nilou and Albedo, right? Nilou impressions because she's new, and our thoughts on Albedo as a returning character. I think this is maybe his third time being as a featured character. And lastly, we will talk about our community discussion question. So, without further ado, let's get started. And the first topic is our weeks in Genshin. Okay, Kahi, so this week in Genshin, you mentioned you've been playing a lot. What have you been doing?
So I finally leveled up all 5 artifacts that I wanted to use for Nahida when she comes out. And I have her artifacts just kind of sitting on Sayu right now, just because I'm trying to think of a character who would be like more fitting to hold this for someone else, and I just picked a random chibi character. So I just have Sayu holding on to like Dendro artifacts. I think they're more focused on energy recharge and mastery. So not a lot of crit, not a lot of crit anything really, because none of my artifacts can even roll with those stats well. So I'm not even gonna try and go after that. I just want to go for like any offensive stats, and it's good. So yeah, I got some artifacts ready, and then the rest I'm gonna do throw into the strong box. I'm still trying to find a good set for my Kaching, because I mean, just as like a character to play with on the side, she's not really like in any of my main teams just yet, but she is still pretty fun. And I completely forgot that she has another way of using her skill, because everyone just keeps throwing the sword and teleporting to it. But I didn't know that you could actually just hold the charge attack and just let the attack happen at that spot, instead of you get teleporting to it. So you can just, I don't know how to explain it, but you can just cause an electro little
Right,
tumbleweed
right. So
cyclone.
Keqing was my first five
Yeah.
star, and I
Mm.
love Keqing, and yeah. So whenever you throw her elemental skill, you can either press the skill button again to teleport to it and do like a one attack, or you press the charge attack from wherever you are, and that elemental skill that you threw will explode. So yes,
And I was trying to find a way to use that, but I still haven't found it yet. But I don't want to waste too many resources on her. She's like more of a side character right now. Just kind of focusing on new ones. Honestly, like this is a great lull because for the next 20 days, with the Nilou banner and Albedo, there's no other character that I need to work on anyway. So I'll probably just focus a little bit more on Kinching and just have equipment ready to go for Nahida and maybe Dea after that. Yeah, also like anytime I'm getting like a wish, I'm trying to keep a good solid even number of wishes for the limited banners, the intertwined fates, but anytime I get like, an extra wish or like an 160 primos, I just like roll one wish on Nilou's banner because it would be nice to get her, but if I had to choose the hierarchy of which ones I want, I'm waiting for the other characters, but just so that I can always have like a solid even number. So when I do my actual rolls, I'll know exactly where my pity's at. So yeah, just doing some more prep. Hyakunin Iki is done. I just finished all of the levels. I got platinum 2 in the last two, and then gold in the rest of them. But I really like this event. It really makes me think of like shorter or smaller teams, but then I can pick what buffs they get, so I don't have to worry about wasting four characters on just one level. I kind of like this dual system, so I kind of wish they make more events where they buff two characters and you can spread out like your vast array of characters throughout many other levels. This is the kind of abyss that like a casual player kind of likes because they all get to feel overpowered even on top of whatever work they put into a character. So I like this event.
yeah, definitely. Yakaniki is one of my favorite events that's like a recurring event, and it's cool because you do also get to use the characters that you've built up. Like if you like you're like me and you've like spread your resources across a lot of characters instead of only having like one or two really strong characters. Like it's really really fun.
That's pretty much my my week in Genshin. Just prep, Hyakunin, you know, getting my wishes ready, and just playing with some side characters. How was your streams? How was the questing in Genshin today?
Oh, all right. So yeah, so I started streaming 2 days ago during Nilou's banner release um as of the time of this recording, and I had my pity built up to like 60 something rolls, and then I did a 10 roll and I got her, so I got her a little early, which is really great. um but and I actually, this is the fourth or fifth 50-50 I've won in a row, which I think is crazy because like
Nice.
every time I've rolled like for Tanari, for Nilou, for even for Ito, like I rolled for them like thinking, okay, if I lose the 50-50, I'll just wait. I don't need this character that much right now, and I'll wait for the next banner. And then save for the character I really want. But I got all the characters. So because of that luck, I now still have, even after Nilou was released, I have all the characters in the game, which is pretty cool. I mean, I have spent money, not like, I don't think like what I would consider like whale amounts, which is like, to me that's still like thousands of dollars. But like I've spent a good amount, and I'm just happy to have at least one of every character, so that I can kind of have the freedom to experiment and change the character based on my mood. So that's fun. I've been streaming a lot, and trying to catch up with the quests. So I did the story quest on my wife's account with my wife. We watched the story together, but I haven't done it on my account. I've been putting it off. So I finally sat down yesterday on stream and did it. It was a good like 6 hours to finish the rest of the quest that I had to do, which is not even the whole thing. Um,
It's long.
yes,
Yeah.
it was long, and I can't skip cutscenes. I have to just like click through them, and you can't click through the scenes that are like that have movement where the characters are like walking around and stuff. You have to like watch it play out. So, uh, so yeah, that took some time, but I was able to do it. And I also started some of the world side quests, which we're going to talk about in a later episode. But there's some really interesting long quests in Sumeru, world quests, and yeah, I'm really excited to talk about those eventually. Other note is, speaking of all the characters and all this stuff, I didn't realize that with I think with 3.0 that we were able to make 10 teams of characters, and so I now have 10 teams of characters, say, like
Same.
preset. Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
had no idea, and I was on stream and I was talking. I was like, oh man, what can we get like 10 teams or something like more, maybe even just 8 for now. I don't know. And then my friend in the chat was like, you can make 10 teams now, and I was like, what? And so I was super surprised by that. But yeah, but also of course just really happy about it. Um, so yeah, that was my week in Genshin. A lot of streaming, a lot of experimenting with Nilou, and really fun. And we're gonna talk more about Nilou in a bit. Now, let's move on to the Genshin news. Okay, in Genshin news today, we've already talked about it a little bit, but the Hyakunin Ikki event has come back, which is really great. We have the Wind Chaser event that starts on October 17th. So by the time you hear this episode is actually should be the day that it starts. So go ahead and get started on that. And then we have the Path of Gleaming Jade going on right now, which is the generous login bonus from Hoyoverse that gives us a full 10 intertwined fates. So that's pretty nice, along with some other rewards like Mora and such. And also Xinyan's birthday is October 16th, or was October 16th. So yeah, more love to Xinyan. I mean, I really wish they would do something about her character to make her fit in more, or like maybe even give her like a buff, or maybe just like come out with another character that works with her, because I feel like I really like her character, and I know like you guys probably like if you play in English, like she has like a country voice, which I think kind of throws a lot of people off. But in Japanese, her voice is like pretty standard Japanese, like Southern Japanese person, like Kansai person. So, um, I really think that it fits her character well. Since I play the game in Japanese most of the time, but I like her character design in general. So that's pretty much it for news. There's not really that much else to talk about. But let's go on to our main topic of the day, which is the Archon Quest. Okay? So we're going to talk about the Archon Quest. If you have not completed this Archon Quest yet, I recommend that you finish it before listening to this next section, as I'm going to overview the Archon Quest really quick. If you want to keep listening, if you want to hear like our Nilou impressions and our beta thoughts, and you want to skip ahead past this part for now, I'll put the timestamp in the description. So feel free to click that if you have not done the Archon Quest yet. But I highly recommend you finish the Archon Quest and come back and listen to the rest of the episode. Okay, great. The first half of which you are in Sumeru City, and the second half of which you are in the Sumeru Desert. Now, just as a quick overview of this Archon Quest, you meet up with Nahida, who is in Catherine's body. You go around possessing people to convince Soteria, one of the assistants of the Arch Sages, to like go back, or to sympathize with her homeland, which she's forgotten so much about, and you convince her to work with you against the sages. But the sages catch on to the plan, of course, and they capture her, and you meet none other than Dottore, who is of the Fatui. He is a very powerful Fatui member, and you find out he has also the power to kind of influence people's minds through some of his own methods, and has like a fight with Nahida, sort of, that we don't really see. It's kind of off screen. You kind of run away and let Nahida take care of it, and you meet up with her later, looking for Tanari in what's that place called? Paradis Salis or something like that. That off, um,
I think it is Paradis.
yeah, that like off research facility that's kind of off on its own, closer to the village where Tanari is, and you meet Hypatia there, the researcher that you first meet when you come to Sumeru, and she claims to have touched God in some way, or Irminsul in some way or another, and she shows you the consciousness that she connects to, because she can just do that now, and she shows you that she connects you to the Balladeer, or Scaramouche, another Fatui member, his past and his mind and his emotions. And you find out that through a bunch of things that happen, after that, you get attacked. Nahida switches bodies with you. You switch bodies with Nahida. And you find out that the Academia is trying to create their own god as offered to them by Dottore. Dottore said, "You guys want to create a god?" And then he's helping them do it, trying to turn Scaramouche into a god using Scaramouche's rage. And then, yeah, you find out Nahida's actually trapped still in the, oh man, these names. I can't remember these names. Like this, like sanctuary of something. She's trapped in there, and she's unable to body jump anymore right now, because of how dangerous it is with Dottore and the sages. And so to figure out all this, you end up going to the desert, and you run into Alhaitham, who's helping you, and then you run into Sino or Seno, and then you run into Dia or Dea as well, and then you run into Candace, and you're the rest of this quest is basically the four of them, talking, creating an alliance, trying to figure out who's on their side. At the end, you basically all decide to trust each other through a lot of the things that happen in the story. But you find out that the Academia is grabbing people, taking their knowledge and turning them into knowledge capsules and using it to fuel their new god, who is Scaramouche. And they're using very immoral methods to do it. And yeah, it's pretty intense. And then at the very, very end of the Archon Quest, you find out that the warring King Deshret and Greater Lord Rukkhadevata were actually not warring at all, and they were actually friends, and that Greater Lord Rukkhadevata actually sacrificed a lot of her power to save King Deshret and his people, to the best of her ability in a dark time. And so this kind of throws one of Dia's friends, who was like a mercenary leader, kind of spins his whole world around, because he spent his whole life hating the Academia, hating Greater Lord Rukkhadevata, the Dendro Archon, and praising King Deshret for always being right, but also being betrayed. But actually, none of that happened. And King Deshret, like, the truth is, you find out that they were friends. And so, this going forward solidifies the mercenaries as allies in the fight against the Academia. Of course, not everybody's going to be on board right away with changing their entire life's meaning of, like, hating the Dendro Archon to suddenly praising the Dendro Archon. But at the same time, it is a really interesting next step for the story to see Alhaitham, Sino, Candace, Dia, and Traveler also working on a plan to take out the Academia, which is what the next update is going to be. They said, like, let's come back here when we have a plan and talk about it, and that was where the Archon Quest ended. Let's see. So this is the story so far. And so Kahi, what do you think of the story so far? Any impressions, things that stood out to you? How was it for you?
So I like the little revelations that you find out that aren't technically like part of the ongoing story right now, but it just helps to expand what's going on around the story. The thing about King Deshret and just how the Scarlet King and their cult is they're trying to make it look like the cult is infiltrating this city. There was something about how Sataria was talking about the Scarlet Kings, and Sataria was saying, okay, here's the line. So it says, even though news of the Scarlet King's resurrection has been spreading like wildfire, it's all just a misinformation campaign for the Academia. How can the Scarlet King still exist in real life? So that, to me, should have been more of a pretty important revelation, because the fact that Scarlet King is being talked about at all was kind of a big deal. But then knowing that the root of it all was the Academia wanting that to be in circulation to begin with. I'm not even sure why they had that misinformation campaign going on. But obviously now Sataria is thinking that it's becoming more and more widespread, and it's becoming, not unstable, but it's becoming more widely common than they wanted. I don't know what the point of it was. Like, so do they want the people to truly believe that Deshret is coming back, so that whatever god they create, they're gonna say, "Oh yeah, look, it's different and reincarnated or something." I mean, did you notice that line, or did you remember
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Sataria saying that?
Yeah, I also thought that, like, I also thought like, wow, this is really important, right? But maybe like looking back on it now, it's just like what they said to fuel the fire that was already there from, like, their culture that formed in the desert. Maybe they just wanted them to fight a lot. I don't know.
I mean, that was just one line that stuck out in my head, but the other line was, what did she say? Okay, here she is. However, there's something that's been really bothering me. I heard that a scholar who was previously expelled has returned to the city, and even the sages are still quite wary of him. So I can only assume they're talking about Dottore. So he was expelled. Obviously, he's not working with the sages. He's working against them because he's with the Fatui now, and He's with the group where they are kind of going against the sages as well. Um, if he's in the city, does he have some? I want to know if he somehow has an upper hand against the sages, and the sages just can't do anything, or they are somehow in cahoots and they have to work with him even though they don't like him, or he finally found something.
Okay, so
A
okay,
lot of
I actually know the answer to
mhm.
this because I just played the story
Okay,
twice. Like, so they
okay,
do say it like, the sages were at a low point because they could not figure out how to fix the withering and Irminsul and to cure it because it's affecting the land in a lot of really negative ways. They couldn't figure it out, and so Dottore comes in and he says, like Dottore is using the sages to further the Fatui's plans, which is to make another Fatui member a god for whatever reason. And so the sages really were just at such a low point that they were like, the what is it? The researchers that got captured by Dia's mercenary friend, um, they said that they didn't know what else to do, and that they just kept saying over and over again, if only the greater Lord Rukadevada was here, she could fix it. If only the greater Lord was here, and they didn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, Dottore comes in, and even though they were wary of him at first, he said to them, "Do you want to create a god?" And then they started listening to him because they're so like encaptured by this idea of being under a god that does things for them, that they wanted to create their own, right? And there's that arrogance of the sages coming in, and this thing that Al-Haytham talks about a lot. Um,
right, because they
yeah,
just wanted a god
yeah,
so that they can have something to like worship, I
yeah,
guess.
and they're at a low
They're
point,
just
so they
they're
really
just
didn't
trying to
know where
create
to
something.
go. They didn't really know where to go. But I think that the Tory is not against the sages. He's using them to further the Fatui's plot, or maybe even his own experiment, because like I think that the Torre is a doctor and he experiments on himself, and this turning Scaramouche into a god is just one of his sick experiments or whatever. So that's what I think is happening based on what they said.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like, but the thing is, do they do they know that Nahida is Ruka Devada? Just you know, weaker
Yeah, they do. They
because she was the one
they
that fixed.
so
Okay,
okay, so
so that's why they imprisoned her, right?
right. So what happened was, Greater Lord Rukadevada is the god of knowledge, right? And so she knew
Right.
everything, and like she knew everything. Like really, she was like the reason that Akasha exists and everything. And then when she died and got reborn, Nahida was born, and they went to Nahida and they were like, oh, the new god. But then they found out she doesn't know anything. Like she has to learn everything. And so they were really disappointed by this because now instead of a god who knows everything, they have a god who's like a child. And so that's why they trapped her in the sanctuary, into because they couldn't figure out, how to, work with her because she was a kid. And so I guess like because her gnosis powers the akasha, so I think she's using the akasha to learn everything. And I don't know why, like, we're still trying to figure out like what exactly the motive was for them like locking her up and not letting her be free, because the things that actually, the traveler says this a couple times toward the end of this Archon Quest. He's like, I never thought a god could be treated so harshly or something like that. Like, they we don't know why they treat her so badly, but they basically are trying to make everyone forget that she exists. And she like a lot of people, especially Sino at the end, he's like is like when the traveler says, I think that this was the power of um the Dendro Archon, and he's like, what? Are you sure the Dendro Archon, the current Dendro Archon, is active right now? And then they start having this conversation about like she basically doesn't exist because the sages only talk about the Greater Lord, the late Greater Lord Rukkhadevata, and then they just like never talk about the. They actually talk badly about the Lesser Lord. Obviously the Lesser Lord has fan base, but you know that's a different story.
Right. So what I'm trying to get at is, do the sages know that? Okay, so obviously they know that she's the Dendro Archon, but Rukkhadevata didn't die. She just became weak because she had to use all of her power to like fix the desert.
Okay.
Like, you know.
So I saw a thing about this.
Right? Am I getting that wrong?
Yes. So actually, she didn't die. She actually just used her powers.
Right.
Right.
So
but
she just
then
she overused it, and then
she did die.
became a weakened form.
Yeah, and then she did die in the war.
She's the same person.
No, she died in the war. In like in the God War. Like the Kainria God War.
Okay.
Like the timing
Okay,
the timing
rewatch that cinematic.
Yeah, so like I think this is how it is in my head right now. It's like that whole thing happened where she became a smaller god, but that was before the god the war, right? So what was it that Sataria said? I think she said like before the Greater Lord died, like the King Deshret died many years before that. Like before the war happened. So the war was only 500 years ago. And then before that, like many years before that, King Deshret died. So the time between she became small and lost a lot of her power, and then like fighting in the war and dying, is there's actually a significant amount of time. And then when she died in
so she
that
was
war,
small in the Archon War.
that we don't know.
Is that right?
But that might be an explanation for why she came back as Nahida, as a smaller version, like because she died as a smaller version. So that which I think will be,
could make sense.
I think that will be brought to light in the future, but it is very confusing. I also had to watch like a lore explanation video of what people think happened because it's not super clear, because they're not saying she got reborn, but they're saying that she became smaller and used a bunch of her power. But then there's a time difference between when she actually did die and turned into Nahida and then when that whole thing with King Deshret happened. So that's important to know.
I mean, that could explain why the three names. I mean, because you have Rukkhadevata, Kusanali, and Nahida. That would make sense. You know, she goes from one form to another, then actually died in a war, then came back.
Well, Kusanali is Nahida's stages. Name. Nahida's like her code name. It's kind of like Morax and Zhongli, or Venti and Barbados. Like they all have two names, right?
Yeah, like one that was given by the people, or one that was assumed, and one that was just
one that they made up.
Something.
One of them is their made up name, like that they used to like kind of blend in more. Like no one calls Zhongli, no one calls the Geo Archon Zhongli. No one calls the Wind Archon Venti, right? Like they say Barbados always, and they say Morax always.
Morax, right?
Yeah. So
didn't he? He had like one other name too. He had one other name, I think, but
yeah, I think so. But that's a name that people gave him. I think it was because of his like wrath or whatever. But Nahida and Kusanali are the same person. Like that is her name. So but yeah, so that's as far as I understand in that sense. So I think even though there's some ambiguity surrounding the situation, we do know a little bit about the situation, but it takes some digging into. So, but yeah, anyway, all right, cool. So confusing, but interesting.
The good kind of confusing, because it's intriguing enough to want to know. I mean, if this was any other like game or show or like story, then not too many people are gonna get that much interested in it. Yeah. But there is enough to have answers to all these questions. So like the digging is the fun part.
I will say I was not expecting the story to go this way at all. Like it was like really interesting. Like I was like, oh, what is happening? Like this is cool. Like I don't know. It kind of reminds me of Honkai, like because I'm trying to play through Honkai story, because now knowing that their worlds are actually connected, I really want to know more about Honkai story as well. as well as Zenless Zone Zero and um, the Honkai Star Rail that are coming out soon, because I think all these games are connected. And even though I like Genshin the most so far, like I I want to understand Genshin's place in this universe, and it's just like super interesting. A lot of their stories like have this sort of um like aspect to it that's like about fighting or like going against gods, or really powerful, supposedly powerful beings that represent like something specific. And I was not expecting this story with like Nahida and like how she's trapped, and then them to create a new god, like as to like to be a thing, especially for Scaramouche, which is really interesting because he comes from a god, right? So I think how it ties in together is really cool, and I'm really curious to see how this Archon Quest and Sumeru is going to end.
So that brings up another thing about the knowledge that was not of this world that started to affect the people in the desert way back then, which is why Worker Devada had to kind of solve it and destroy it all, and then lost all of her power in the meantime. That is like the first. No, I guess I shouldn't say first because I don't know the exact background lore. Is like one of the instances where something outside our world or even possibly dimension leaked into this world, causing problems.
Right.
So just the knowledge itself obviously could either be like a physical manifestation or like just actual knowledge and things that people learn. Now people are going crazy.
Oh,
Or it's just something that now exists, like the withering. Like some kind of infectious,
yeah.
force and at work here.
Yeah, actually, so it's funny that you mentioned that part specifically, because when I watched the trailer, that like King Deshret's final memories of his priest, like that cutscene again last night, I also specifically noticed that part where they said they had this like knowledge, that's forbidden knowledge, that like came to them, and it made me think, is this tied to Honkai? Like it made me really think, like, is there like an alternate universe, like travelers, come from other worlds, like thing in play here? And looking at Honkai as an example, they actually go through like other worlds slash universes like in Honkai, which makes me think, after Tevat, where will Genshin's story go? Like, I'm really, really curious because they've built up this huge, huge world of Tevat, but like Tevat is not like, even from the beginning, Traveler came here from another world. That's literally in the first line of the game from Paimon. Like, so you're saying you came here from another world, and like, so does that mean we're gonna see the other worlds? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm so excited to see like what kind of drops, like hints and things that they drop, because this forbidden knowledge, if it really has to do with other worlds, like the way the traveler exists, and the way the traveler and their sibling always traveled together, um, if if that exists, then that means there's definitely people like Alice, right? Like Klee's mom in the episode we talked about, knows about these other worlds. Like there's people who know about these other worlds, and we can hopefully see some like drops of like people like Dottore, like who I expect to know about the other world. You know what I mean? Like we would confront him, and he'll say something like, um, "Did you ever think this is the only world?" or something like that, and you're like, "No, it's not." Like, and the traveler obviously knows that like better than anybody, but um, I'm really curious how they're gonna start uh chipping away at like this idea that there's like a greater universe outside of Tevat, and if this event with King Deshret, where they're just talking about it, is that. Like, I'm really curious about it.
Yeah. So I was just pulling up the video in the background. So yes, King Deshret did bring the forbidden knowledge to the people, but the graphic that they have on it is like there's an eye,
Right?
and yellow light is above it, kind of symbolize, clean or like holy light or something. But then it goes through the eye, and the eye then kind of leaks down like a dark ooze. So it's channeled through an eye. I mean, of course, we've seen eyes all over the place. We have eyes on like a lot of bosses. We have like eyes on like the hands of like those, I guess, right in Shogun's form, and she summons like those puppet hands. We have Zhongli, who stands on like hands in like another like visual cinematic and they also have eyes. So obviously, anything that has like a really big eye is going to be very, very important. Maybe related to the divine gaze that Scaramouche is trying to conquer before he makes his next move. I don't know if this is his next move that they were talking about, because maybe this is just how Scaramouche. This is his ultimate end goal. I don't know if he has any plans after this. Maybe it's him becoming a boss is like that's it, and then now he's won, or does he plan on using that power for something else? Because I still feel like he's not fully with the Fatui because he's off on his own. I mean, he's most likely just doing things for himself. He doesn't like,
Right.
trusting other people.
Yeah,
He's been betrayed three
kind
times,
of
right?
like Tartaglia in a way, right? Like, because
Yeah, in a way.
Tartaglia is a playable Fatui character, right? Which is already like a big deal if you think about it lore wise, right? Because the Fatui are like kind of the ultimate group of bad guys at this point, and you can play as one, and he's like a pretty nice guy. You play his story, and it's like about his little brother and protecting his family. Like, he has his own motives. And while Dottore seems like he's just like the evil character who has evil motives, um, Scaramouche, on the other hand, going through his backstory, they humanize him a bit, and you understand why. Like, you can sympathize with him, why he's so angry, in some way, right? And my friend, who is like a huge Scaramouche, like a Scaramouche main already, you know what I mean? Like, she's like, she's like, um, saving up gems for Scaramouche now, like, you know what I mean? And she's like not gonna roll for anyone until she gets Scaramouche, and she's waiting for him. She's done a lot of research on his backstory and stuff, and she was telling me the other day, like, Scaramouche was, and he says this in his cutscene a little bit, but he was kicked out and like regarded as a failed experiment to become the Electro Archon because he was too emotional. Like, that was the reason. Like they wanted, like, the way that the Raiden Shogun is right now, like, not like the Raiden Shogun is emotionless, right, and is very logical. Like, that was what the intention was. So like Scaramouche was the first version, and he was too emotional. So she basically said, "No, you can't do this." And then he ran away, like, oh, like, I'm not good enough for you, and he like ran away. Basically, like, that's kind of what is implied to have happened so far.
Wait,
And
didn't a scientist or doctor create the puppets too, or was that all
oh,
like
it was like from the
a?
electronosis, like it was her thing. So
Oh, so it was her, not someone
yeah,
else, not some other scientist
yeah.
involved.
So
Okay.
so Zhongli gave his gnosis away, but before when he had it, he was able to like move, like create giant structures and do all this stuff. And Venti had his gnosis, but then he like got it taken from him by someone who is now dead. And then what's it called?
Rip.
Yeah, and he could like, control the dragon and do all this stuff. I don't know. But A used her gnosis for creating the puppets, I think. I'm pretty sure that was what it was for. And Nahida uses her gnosis, or her gnosis is being used to run the Akasha. So, I'm really curious about, like, where the gnosis thing is going, like, because that's still a story point in the background. And I'm pretty sure Scaramouche has A's gnosis. So, yeah, so we'll see what happens, and I'm sure we'll learn more about it. But remember, Scaramouche is going to be playable. Like, that is our understanding from things. I don't know. I don't. There's no like leaks or anything of that. It's just like people understand that there's a really good chance that Scaramouche is going to be playable. There is some leaks about it, but it's like very, very far off from being confirmed. So I don't even consider it like leak worthy news. But just the fact that he may be playable is like gotten a lot of people really excited, and then looking into his character, and I really hope that he is the next playable Fatui member, because because we are already learning to, what's it called? We're learning to understand him emotionally, like what kind of character he is, and so even now, knowing that he feels like he was thrown out by the world, then it's like uh what was it? So we understand why he
They're trying
feels
to
the way he
gain
does.
sympathy.
Yeah, yeah. So like they wouldn't
They're
just do
trying to
that,
draw
right?
sympathy from us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
They want us to care about the character, so we'll roll for them.
there's exactly. Yeah. So interesting. How Scaramouche was trying to be a god. it was really kind of like surprising, right? Like when Hypatia's like, "Oh, let me show you," and then you just like watching a Scaramouche cutscene, and then I was like, "What?" And then,
I love that cut in, by the way.
right? And then,
Because like you feel like, oh, you should take him seriously. He's starting to like seriously mess with things if he's starting to pop up unexpectedly when he's not supposed to be.
yeah, and I love how like Paimon was just like, "What? That was the Balladeer." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And then like when you switch bodies with Nahida and you see Scaramouche, like you sense his presence or whatever, so cool. It's just so cool. So I'm really excited for this.
So just to be double extra sure, the Gnosis is still with Nahida, and Nahida is still
Trapped.
captured and isolated and powering this system.
Yeah.
And all she's just her consciousness is kind of like floating about, just kind of like because she's in the system, she can take over anyone who's in the system, right?
Right.
Just want to double check.
She
Okay,
could,
so
but she's
I
not
wanted to make sure I'm not
able
coming up with
to.
stuff.
Apparently, she's not able to anymore because of something the doctor did or is doing, or maybe she's just worried to do it because of that.
Yeah, she's probably just laying low, or maybe Dottore does have something else up his sleeve. We haven't seen everything from him, anyways.
Right.
I
So
like this story.
it's
I think
super interesting.
honestly, there's there's still a lot in the desert that I feel like we haven't even discovered yet. Especially because there's so many side quests in it. I feel like they packed probably more into the desert than the jungle, which is kind of ironic because the jungle is much more full and lush, has a lot of puzzles. But I think they put more. I don't want to say effort, but they had a more design themes and choices made, intentional choices and systems put into the desert just because of it's more ancient. There's more ruins involved, and there's a lot of things underground, and they had to come up with how to fit everything all together.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't realize, like when I first saw the map, there were waypoints that are hidden, and you can only finally see them unless you actually go through those quests and then go underground, and then now you can see like the unattuned waypoints, which is like at least 5 or 6 extras down there. So
Mm-hmm.
now I'm trying to like leave like my own little marks to know exactly, okay, this is underground, this is above ground, this is like that entrance is the other one. But
Right.
oh my god, there's so much stuff over there. It's great. I like the desert. I'm honestly liking the desert more than the forest.
Oh, I already like Desert more than the Forest just because you can see everything from far away. Minus the underground stuff you're talking about, which I don't want to spoil too much of that storyline yet. We'll talk about that next week, but um, yeah. So the desert, there's definitely more to the desert than you see just on the top layer. So yeah, so we will find out more about the Greater Lord and the Lesser Lord and how they're related to Scaramouche and the Doctor in the upcoming Archon Quest for sure. Now, what did you think about Aru Village and like that whole arc of like going through with Candace and Alhaitham and Sino and trying to figure out exactly what the Academia was up to in the village?
I love how Candace is actually very scary, but very like calm and level-headed about it. Like she's scary behind closed doors. That's like I feel like that fits her personality perfectly. Because like in the daytime she's very bright, very cheerful. And I mean not super bright, but she's like a very pleasant person to to get along with. And then come nighttime, she's like in full on sadist mode because she's the one that was interrogating those three I guess mercenaries, and then all you could hear behind the door when she like takes them into the door is like just like a blood curdling scream.
Yeah. And
You
what
have
is
to
it
interact with the
like?
door.
It's like Sino taught her how to use these
Hmm.
interrogative methods. They said that's really funny.
Wait, did Sino teach her, or
Yeah,
did
he's
she just
like
come up with that?
now he's like he's like
So it
I'll
was
I'll show
Sino.
you and then was it Paimon says like wow she learned really fast. It's like she mastered it already or something like that. So yeah, it's really funny.
She's also friends with Dea, so definitely gonna have them on a team. It's probably gonna be Beto, Dea, Candice, and maybe I guess I need a healer. I'll probably put Jean on there or something. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll have that as my team when she comes out.
The tall waifu team, got you.
Pretty much.
And yeah, so for me, I think that Aru Village is pretty cool. Like uh just like not only aesthetically, but it's just a really interesting story. Like I kind of like, so they said that Aru Village was formed from the dead. So okay, back up. Like the desert, there was originally like not a desert or something. I think there was like some implication that that the desert used to be green as well, but then it became a desert, which maybe we'll find out more about future. But this is like way, way, way,
It's just
way long
very
time ago.
developed.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is a way long
Mm-hmm.
time ago.
Yeah, all the buildings, everything.
And so like then there's King Deshret and his people that lived there, and then the people of Aru Village are the people who remained from King Deshret's kingdom, that gathered there to survive in the desert, basically. And yeah, like it's just a really interesting thing that like they exile scholars there, and there's just a lot going on. So yeah, I'm really interested to see if the Aru village plays any more part in this story whatsoever. But I think I think it's done. I think that they're gonna move on from Aru village and they're gonna figure out more about what's going on. But we'll see. It was really fun, kind of doing investigative work there with like Sino and Al Haitham, so that was cool. Also,
Oh, and you
how
found
about
that
that first
little hospital
cutscene?
thing.
That first cutscene when you
Hmm.
first go to our village and Sino attacks Al Haitham when you're walking on there, and then Dia
That
comes
was
in.
fun.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. Oh, the little hospital thing. Yeah, it's from the story. Yeah, I mean that
Hmm.
was like it was just what it was. Like it was part of the story, and you need to find something. But it was very very short. Uh, very very short moment in the story. I think compared to everything else that happened.
But the cool thing is about in there in that little hospital though, because I was trying to read the things on the walls to see if I was trying to see if I can find out if it was hinting at a character that was there.
Right.
I could be wrong, but maybe was Kale here or was Kale somewhere else?
Oh, Kale was
Because I
in
know she had the history.
Kale was in she was in Mondstadt during her
No,
experimentation.
like when
She was brought.
that was in Mondstadt. Okay.
Yeah, she was brought from Sumeru to Mondstadt to, um, like by her parents because they wanted someone to get rid of the Elazar, and then like the doctor I think was the one that ended up being in charge of her and experimented on her. And so I'm sure we'll find out more about that. I mean, there was like a comic about it, but it's still kind of, I think, I don't know. I haven't actually read the actual comic, but I watched a YouTube video about it. I might have to go back and revisit, but they don't really explain in gross detail, but they they basically imply a lot. And obviously she's better now, but she's still being affected by Elazar, and it's getting worse, and the withering is getting worse. So the main story is gonna hopefully come back to Doctor Irminsul, Scaramouche, and the Withering, and then we will figure that out, including that one little area. Like we haven't been able to go there yet, right? Or is that part of a quest I haven't done yet, like the R&R quest or
Talking
something?
about that big swirling sandstorm thing or
No,
something else?
like the place it's within the playable area, but you can't go there. But it's where the trees are barren and there's like a bunch of like black.
Oh, those,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can't go there yet, right?
That's most likely going to be next patch. No, not yet.
Right. Yeah.
Because
So
it just turns you back.
yeah, exactly. So that part is I'm really curious to know more about the Withering. Um and yeah, we'll see how it goes. I wonder if it'll change
Well,
anything.
because, yeah. So before we move on to the next topics, but just about that hospital, there was someone that was at that hospital that escaped. There's only one person. They burrowed their way out, and you found like their shovel at the end of the tunnel. So there is someone who was there that is free and roaming about.
Hmm.
So I definitely want to know who that was. If that's a playable character or some other NPC that's going to be, coming up in the near future, or it could be just its own little mini story, and that's
Right.
just how it ended, which is still cool. But I just want to know, like, I gotta remember, there's a person that escaped the hospital.
There
Who could
was
this be?
like
If anyone talks about it,
the on the writings on the walls and stuff, there was like redacted names, like they were like blocked out, right?
censored. Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
There's items in the game that have that too, not just that.
hmm, so interesting. Like like props to whoever like writes this like flavor text and extra lore and background quests and stuff that goes on in the world to make it feel like a living world, because there's just so much. interesting backstory to some of these places. Like even like Enkanomiya and like Inazuma also had a lot of like cool backstory stuff, and now we're finding out Sumeru has like so much backstory involved with like it's different generations of people that went through these like the desert and the forest, and then there's the Aranara involved, and it's like a very very um plentiful story, I think. But yeah, really cool. So, all right, so ready to move on to the next section?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yeah, hopefully we'll see some really more interesting stuff in the next Archon Quest to come. But for now, let's continue by talking banner banter, talking about our Nilou impressions and Albedo thoughts. So, um, so I just want to quickly say about Nilou. So I got her and I was using her for the first, I don't know, like 3 hours of my stream. Like I was leveling her up and getting stuff for her, and I was using her, and I was reading her. I was reading her elemental skill over and over again. I did not watch the demo, which now I should have watched the demo video. And I still haven't watched it. But I didn't understand from reading the description how her ability worked. So what I did was I pressed the elemental skill button, and then I always just did normal attacks. I didn't realize you could press the skill button again, and I didn't realize like how the 1 2 3 1 2 3 thing works, where you like can do any two attacks, and then the third attack is what determines which stance you go into. I had no idea, so I was just using her as sword dance DPS mode for like 3 hours without realizing there was another way you could do it. um,
See, you learn more by experience. Just everything in her kit is like an essay to read, which I totally get. When I started using her in the test run, it was a lot simpler than I thought it was gonna be, because even though it is pretty complicated, just in practice, like you press the skill, but then the next button you press determines what string of attacks you're gonna do. So if you want to go towards getting that water aura, press the skill again. If you want to keep attacking with her, keep doing her normal attacks.
yeah,
That's basically how I look at it, like a little decision tree.
yeah. Well, actually, you can actually do like skill, and then your third attack. If it's the normal attack, you'll switch to normal attack mode. Like only the third hit matters. The first two hits are totally free, up to you if you want to do your physical attack
Right,
for
right.
that, or if you want to do skill. So you can do skill normal, normal skill, and then whatever your third hit is determines which one you go to. And I think that her skill one is more of like an AOE. Like it like kind of hits a wide arc instead of like a vertical arc. So
Yeah, it's a spin.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it looks cool. So basically, you can kind of figure out your own dance, like while you're doing it, which is pretty nice. Um, so yeah, so that part I just want to get out of the way is like you can do that if you have her and you didn't know that. You can press her skill multiple times to activate her other passive, or you can press her normal attack after using her skill once to activate her sword passive. So which is like essentially one of them is the DPS where she's on the field doing water damage, and the other one is a support where she's applying hydro to whatever the active character is. So you can do the dance, apply the hydro circle, and then switch out to a different character. So those are just the two main ways you can use her. All right. So what are your impressions with Nilou so far, Kahi? Just from what you played of her, because you don't have her, right? So like playing of her in the demo, seeing
Yeah.
her, online maybe. What do you think?
I like this character. It's a very fun, intricate way to figure out a string of actions, because you can say, like you said, you could do, skill, attack, skill. You can figure out your dance. You can choose how you want the attacks to come out, and she basically can fit in any team. She's kind of like Shogun in a way, because her skill is like very persistent. Even though it doesn't attack, it does apply like a very big, hydro status to anyone in the area. And a lot of people think that you can only use her with Hydro and Dendro. That is not true at all, because it's still a Hydro element. You can still do superconducts. You can still do, you know, vaporizes. You can still do freezes. That's still in the game, and that's still good. People think no, because to get her extra damage, you have to use Dendro and Hydro only, so you can only use her with that. Like, no, that's a bonus. But she also does really well with the other elements too. That damage bonus will translate to her elemental mastery procs. So a lot of people keep thinking because her kit specifically says she does do a bonus thing with only these two elements, that people think they're missing out on some insane damage by only by not sticking with those two elements. No, you can still use her with whoever you want, but just thematically, it makes sense why she would have some kind of bonus with Dendro. I mean, obviously she's from this new patch. She has an interaction with the Dendro Archon. Well, there could be a bunch of reasons, but I like her kit because you can find so many teams that she has a place in. She's like Kuki Shinobu in a way because her AOE skill, big area. I mean, you could probably use her and Kuki in the same team because you have Kuki and Nilou. Did you try her out in that team yet or no? Yeah, you could. What are you using her with right now?
So I mean, okay. So this comes to like what you're saying. Basically, comes to again to like, do I want to optimize my characters and get the most potential damage, etc., out of them, or do I want to just enjoy the characters I have, build a team that I enjoy playing with, etc., etc. Like it's like optimize versus fun, right? And the truth of the matter is that Nilou has two passives. Everybody has two passive abilities, right? And both of her passive abilities only are activated when her team is made up of only Hydro and Dendro. So that's super restrictive. So even if you choose to put her on another team, if you have one fire person in there, one pyro person, one electro person in there, you cannot use her passives, like period. So you're only using her skill and her water hydro application, right? For which there are other characters that can also do this. So the only way I would say like, if you want your team to do like good damage or whatever it is, like if you care about the optimized part of the gameplay, then I wouldn't recommend you put her in a team with that's not only Hydro and Dendro. But if you want to just have fun and use her as the water applicator in your team, that's totally possible. And like you said, there are taser comps. You can even do like I saw some videos like I Win to Lose Gaming had like a nuke comp where he like did vaporize with her with like Xiangling and Bennett and it was like ton of damage. But it's a very specialized build. But it was just a cool thing to see that you can use her in other ways. She has pretty strong, like decent numbers, when it comes to just her base damage and stuff. Now the reason that she's so interesting is because she sets a really interesting precedent for characters to come because she changes the way the elemental reaction works. So Bloom exists right now with Hydro and Dendro, but when you have Nilou and you have a team of only Hydro and Dendro, the Bloom becomes a different elemental reaction entirely. It's called Bountiful Bloom, which is still acts like Bloom, but it acts differently. In that like it will blow up immediately and does a lot more damage. And this is like so this is something like so for example, like what if I told you a new character comes out and instead of electro charge, it did something else like zap them from the sky instead of doing like normal electro charge. Like like causing an electro charge with this character does something else. Like that's basically what Nilou does. So when you cause a bloom, it causes a different kind of bloom. And so that's really interesting to consider. But you cannot use that unless you have only Hydro and Dendro in your party. It doesn't matter if you have 3 Hydro and 1 Dendro, 3 Dendro and 1 Hydro, and the Hydro is Nilou. You have to have only Hydro and Dendro in your party, and you have to activate those elemental reactions. So she can fit in every team, but you can't use her that whole special thing unless you adhere to the restrictive properties of her passives. But like we were saying, she's super fun. She's very flexible in terms of like hydro application. Like if you want to use her in other hydro application teams, and she's aesthetically really cool. Like she dances and she has like bright red hair with like white outfit. Like fits the Sumeru vibes. Like really really cool. So, I definitely think it's going to be up to people to decide, do I want her for the aesthetic or do I want her for, because I like her character design, or do I want to like do a bunch of damage, use Hydro and Dendro, use blooms. Obviously, as we get more Dendro and Hydro characters in the future, it becomes less restrictive in that like we'll have more options. But for example, right now the only Hydro healers are, I mean, Xingqiu kind of, but Barbara and Kokomi. And this is important because when the blooms blow up, they actually damage your own character too. And so and part of that is built into her passive where like you get extra elemental mastery. But right now it's really restrictive because you need a water healer. There's no Dendro healers, and we only have 3 Dendro characters. So I think that she's super fun if you played her in the trial. I played her in the trial. I was surprised. I was like, I was planning on skipping you. Honestly, we put out a poll, and I was like, maybe I'll see. Like I put it like if I was gonna roll for her, but again, I was rolling to almost basically lose the 50-50, and I ended up winning the 50-50. So I have her, and I um really enjoy her. So that's how I feel about her so far. Right.
It'll be a nice to have, but not a need to have. That's
Yeah.
how I look at it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that if you are interested in any of the characters coming up and you don't have the Primo Gems or the funds to be able to guarantee getting them, I would save now. I would skip Nilou and I would save for Nahida, save for Alhaitham, save for Dia, like yeah, even save for Scaramouche if you're like not interested in any of those characters. But definitely it's definitely a niche pick right now, I think. So yeah. So that's Nilou.
And save up for Alakino.
And oh my god, okay, so for TUI members. Yes. So
We didn't forget. No, we did not.
never forget. Right, we're gonna always stand for Arlecchino. And so let's see. Albedo thoughts. So Albedo, you don't have Albedo, do you, Kahi?
I do not, but I guess again, it's one of those characters. It's nice to have, not need to have.
Hmm.
I do appreciate his short skill cooldown,
Yeah.
which is awesome. He is Geo. I'm a fan of Geo. I like Geo characters, and his skill does count as a Geo construct, so I can use Zhongli's pillar, and I can put his down, and they both pulse. I
Yes.
like that. However, I don't need another 5-star that I'm not gonna use as much as I want the other 5 stars. So I will have to pass until I can really craft around it or find a way to include him, because I like my thematic teams. I like teams that look like they make sense. I don't have a lot of weapons, so I can't just have all the characters and not give them a weapon. So I just can't outfit him fully.
Yeah, you gotta wait.
Even though I have a weapon,
You gotta
for
wait
him,
till we can play Alice.
there's a lot.
So you can have Alice, Klee, Albedo, and
Oh
Jean.
man, Alice would be great. That would be nice. Or maybe
Family.
Lisa.
Or Lisa, I guess. But yeah, or Varka. um, but yeah, I think so. Albedo used to be one of my favorite 5 stars. Like, I really like his design. I know he looks kind of close to Aether and Kazuha, and there's like jokes about that, but he's very very fun to play. I also agree. I'll just say up front, like I think it's a like nice to have, not need kind of character. And but he, if you're building a Geo team of any sort, he's always a great inclusion. And it's really fun to use his platform that he makes. Like he makes a little flower that floats upwards, and use that for archers or characters like Klee, and just kind of enjoy the game a little bit. Like have some really interesting looking skills and do some interesting things. Like Albedo is very fun. Like you said, the cooldown is only 2 seconds on his flower, so you can kind of just keep spamming it for extra damage. And then anytime you're inside the circle and you attack, it will do extra instances of geo damage. Of course, on the internal cooldown, which I think is like 2 seconds or so. But yeah, so it is really cool. He's a really cool character to use, but kinda niche. So what about so that's Nilou and Albedo. Both of them are kind of like you can skip this banner if you're not super hardcore want any of these characters right now. But they're both good in their own rights, and they're both fun to play, which I think is cool. It's cool that they're both fun to play. There's some characters not as fun to play, but really strong. So yeah, so those are our thoughts on the characters. And just real quick, I want to mention about the weapons. The weapon for Nilou is one of the, I think it's the only HP percent main stat sword, and all of Nilou's damage comes from her HP. Basically, like all of her skills scale off of it. So definitely worth getting if you are really really into Nilou and you really want to optimize her as best you can. Primordial Jade Cutter is also a good sword, which has a passive for increasing HP. And actually, I'm actually rolling for these right now because I actually just want any of them, like either one of those two. Will even take certain like Wolf's Gravestone or like some of the standard banner. So I'm kind of just rolling because it's like a win-win situation for me if I can get anything. Um, but yeah, and I think that the new weapons, there's like Xiphos's Moonlight and like one other one that's like a sword, and then the a catalyst. And I think the sword is the one Al-Haytham uses like in the story. So aesthetically I want that one for Al-Haytham, but but we'll see. It's like a 4-star, so hopefully it'll be just be added to the standard banner after this.
Oh, I might need that catalyst. I just looked at it. I didn't realize there was a catalyst too. I saw the swords, but oh, it's because it's elemental
Yeah.
mastery catalyst, base attack, and then 24% of their elemental mastery is bonus attack for 12 seconds. Ah, man. I might need
You mean
that.
you didn't know?
No, I didn't look into the catalyst. I mean, I just kept seeing the swords.
Yeah, the 4-star
Uh,
stuff is new, so like it's actually kind of worth losing. Like,
mhm.
yeah, like it's I'm just going for it just because
I need a good
you know,
weapon for
I'm trying to
Nahida.
get to one. Oh yeah, Nahida. Oh man, I can't wait. Okay, so they haven't announced anything yet, but I'm assuming that next week, no, 2 weeks from now or so. No, next week. It should be like next week ish. Weekend should be like the next live stream if they go by the standard pattern. So really excited to see what they announce. Ho ho. So so yeah.
Surprise,
So that's
Dea.
our impressions on there. Oh yeah, where's Dea exactly? Dea. I want I'll hide them. Like at this point, like I love Dea and I like her aesthetic. But Al Haytham is like I really really like his aesthetic, and depending on how the two of them play, I'm not going to, not at this point, but they are the kind of characters I would C6. You know what I mean? Like design wise. Like if they're really fun,
Yeah, they're cool.
then I'll try to go for I would go for like as many constellations as I can. Um Still doesn't beat my wife's luck of getting two ride-ins in one 10 pull.
Oh my god.
uh yeah, super lucky. All right, so moving on to our last segment for the day, the community discussion. So last week we asked you if you were given a new way to travel around Genshin, specifically with the Sumerin Desert in mind, what would you like to see? So, Kahi, could you read off these answers from the community for us?
You want to read theirs and then ours, or ours then theirs? Which one you want to go?
Oh, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should talk about ours first.
Okay, because I think I mentioned this in like a very long time ago episode when before Sumeru came out. I would love to see like one of those sand sailors, kind of like how in Avatar: The Last Airbender, like you have to use like wind to like generate like a gust through like sails and it kind of push you across the sand. I would love something like that. Like you instead of just you
Yes.
like moving it around with like a control stick, you actually have to like perform an action to make it move forward. It kind of makes it feel more mechanical in a way, not just move here. It's not. I don't want it to be too bland and simple. I want it to be fun to travel.
Hmm. Yeah, I get that. I would probably want to see something either like a hoverboard or like more realistically, they could do another, little, you know, little copy from Breath of the Wild, and then just like give you like some kind of, uh, some kind of board or shield or something
Shell.
to, like something like that to stand on, and then you only travel going downhill. So when you're going downhill, you can slide basically, and you can jump also. I feel like that's a very doable thing. I feel like a whole machine would be kind of difficult to get around certain parts of the map. The desert would be good, of course, but maybe it wouldn't let you get too close to certain structures like rocks and things because it might glitch out. That's what I feel like. So, but if if we're talking like just in general, yeah, a windsurfing kind of thing, like a basically like a surfboard with a sail would be really cool. I think. What's everybody else saying?
Alrighty, so we have a couple of interesting suggestions in this, but some they kind of sound the same. So, Tiuri, I think it will be a machine or a wind surfboard, so kind of a mix of our ideas, which makes sense. Um, Anything like wind or sail related would be would be pretty cool. We have also Mr. Leeks Scott. I would love to see a mount, which is basically like any kind of MMO mount, like a horse or some kind of an animal. Any kind of mount would be great. We have Phoebe Noble 11 being able to glide, but like with the new Sumerian teleport thingy. Hmm. Glide with the new Sumerian
I
teleport
think
thingy.
I think they mean the 4-leaf sigils, like the little sparkles that we can
Oh yeah,
slingshot
yeah,
to.
those things. Those would be cool. I mean, I already
Yeah,
like
but
how you
like,
travel with
but
those.
imagine if you're like slingshotting on that, but like you control it, like you like
Momentum.
while you're slingshotting, you just drive it, and then it's like you're flying. It's very satisfying to
Mm-hmm.
use those.
Yeah, because Phoebe wants to be able to teleport to those constantly flying everywhere on the map. That would be awesome. Or maybe you could like place them wherever you want. Like you can choose where to
Hmm.
spawn them. Like if you exist in a certain spot in the air, you can just use the gadget button and it places one there. That'd be cool.
So imagine like Kaching's elemental skill where you hold it and you can kind of place it in
That
like a certain distance
exists.
away from you.
Yes, that mechanic exists in
Yeah.
the game already. They could just use that.
So imagine they had something like that. But imagine like that thing in front of you. It's like what wherever you are moving the cursor, it's constantly pulling you forward in the same vein of using the 4-leaf sigils. So like you're just like you're slingshotting, but you're actually just following one point that you are driving with the control stick, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, it's kind of hard to explain, but like imagine just being able to uh fly,
Just
basically.
straight up fly. Let's just add flying to the game.
Just fly. Yeah, mount. No mount, just fly.
And we have from a Venti, just Venti, everything. Hmm. So if you're given a new way to travel around Genshin, what would you like to see? Venti says everything. That makes sense.
I mean, Venti can already fly, so I
Yeah,
mean,
Venti is the
I don't want
wind
to hear it from
archon,
you.
animal archon. Alright, we have Scarletto. Scarlet, being able to ride in a camel or something similar. I've always wanted to ride something like the Stingray and Enkonomiya. See, there is nothing that freaking that Stingray does nothing. It's huge,
Yep,
it's cool, and all it does is just float around just out of reach. And
just
that's it.
vibing,
Just
just
vibing, and
vibing,
you see it nowhere else in the game. Why?
Can't you like jump? You can like jump near them, right? Like,
I
but they don't
guess,
do
but
anything.
yeah, it's like they add a creature like that and they don't do anything. That was disappointing that you couldn't interact with it more or it didn't do more. But
But
yeah,
I like that Scarlet remembers
I
them.
know Scarlet remembered that one. The camel would make so much sense, but there's no camels in this desert, obviously. I am okay with the Sumpter Beast though. That's a good compromise. I mean, if I had to choose camel or Sumpter Beast, I'm probably gonna choose the Sumpter Beast.
Right?
And we have next up Peachy on Genshin, obviously a giant ship you surf on. See, a lot of people like that idea too.
Yeah.
Next one we have Mr. I Want Venti. So we have Venti and we have I Want Venti in this same in the same community, which is great. It would be cool if you could ride the tumbleweed, but you can't control them. You know why I love this idea? It's because it's just I want like a random button so that I can find out what's over here. It's like a very lazy excuse to go into a new area and say, "Oh, what's here now?" Like a random teleport option, I think would be fun. And then you randomly find something new. That instead of just wandering aimlessly. I like this idea. Even though it's silly, I like it. Josh, what do you think about this tumbleweed idea? You like it or not?
Um, Yeah, like so have you played the game what's it called? Like the game mode? It's not Wind Trace, right? The one where oh yeah, Wind Trace. Yeah, Wind Trace. The one that you turn into the objects.
Oh no, I didn't play that yet. No.
So oh my god, okay. So you know like what prop hunt is, right?
Yes, I definitely know. It's based off of that. I know.
Yeah.
It looks
Yeah,
fun.
so it's
Maybe I'll
like
try
where
it later.
you turn it so you can actually turn into like a tumbleweed in that and like roll around.
Wait,
I want to just
tumbleweed
be
is
the
an
tumbleweed.
actual thing. It already
I
exists
just
in
want
the
to be
game.
the tumbleweed.
Wow.
Yeah, it's there.
All
Just let
right.
us do it.
Cool. All right, Holyverse.
I
Just
don't
just
care
I
what
just
kind
add
of
it.
magic. I don't care what you have to say to make it canonically feasible, but just let us turn into a tumbleweed, please.
It'd be funny. Okay. Hey, Mr. Pimzo Balto. What's up, dude?
Hey, Bimzo
Okay,
Balto.
maybe like a Spider-Man gadget. I know we already have one similar, but like actually swinging. See, this builds off the other thing, like those little mini tethers in midair. Having a system like that is gonna be great. He says, I hope this gadget will exist because my favorite superhero is Spider-Man. You see, you can't go wrong with
Oh,
Spider-Man.
well, Kahi, are you assuming Pimzo Balto's gender?
I call everyone a dude online. It's the internet.
Okay, I see how it is. All right. Well, I also like Spider-Man, my favorite superhero, and if there was a Spider-Man gadget, and I recommend you look this up if you haven't already. But the way that Fortnite does the Spider-Man swinging is so good, and I wish that there was something like that in Genshin.
You know what's hilarious? Like in Destiny 2, the next expansion coming out, they're literally adding this, like the ability to grapple like in midair to like a point in like the fabric of reality.
In Destiny?
Yes, they are doing this exact thing. It's
What?
it's it's weird how like very close this game is following it, because Genshin, Destiny, and like World of Warcraft, these even like New World, somehow they have very similar things coming out like in every one of their patches and expansions. It's weird. I know it's not intentional. I know it's just purely coincidental. I just think it's kind of weird because like there's even games that had like all these ice expansions, like everything's snowy now, which was also weird. But I don't know. Is there like some kind of like game developer Discord where they kind of exchange ideas and they're like, "Oh yeah, see you guys," and then they all go back to their company and do it? I don't know. It's just funny, a funny coincidence. Alrighty. We have two more. So this next one, Icky Devil, a mount you can ride. Short, to the point, very concise, amount that you can ride. Yes, I like that idea. What are your thoughts on this one? I think this is a very complicated, nuanced answer that we could draw the 30-minute discussion minimal. What do you think?
Wait. Read the next one too.
Okay, so the next one, by a Lex Loothole, riding a Howdah, which is a spacious seat with a canopy on the back of a Sumpter Beast. Beast moves on a set path, and you can ADS on opportunity targets on the way. I also very much like this idea, but they're probably not going to be very fast. It's cool to be able to ride them, but just as a travel method, maybe as a daily commission, but I don't know as like a means of travel. It's fun, it's cool, but I don't know. What do you think? Where do you think this would fit?
So I think so. Okay, hear me out. I think that mounts and stuff is cool. And like the Howdah thing on the back of a Sumpter Piece, the beast moves on a set path. Like, I mean, this sounds like something that would be like an event. Like this sounds like something they would put in the game and you would do it, but like it's not something you can just do wherever you want. And but the mount, like a mount you could ride, if you could like somehow unlock riding a Sumpter Beast after that, yeah, it would be fun. You're right, it wouldn't be very efficient, but I guess it would be efficient if you can like pick a point on the map and then it will like go there for you like automatically, even if it's slow. That'd be kind of interesting.
Oh, that
But
could
I think
be.
that
I have an idea after you. Go ahead.
okay, but I think that I would welcome that. But I also think that they should. This is like, totally not related to this, but at the same time, um, they should make the camera mode more robust. Like adding emotes, adding better ways to interact with the camera, being able to like set it so that you can move your character in certain ways. And I would love to have like a riding on a slow mount while walking through the desert, sort of like cinematic thing. Like I would love to do that cinematically, but I don't think it's efficient for like traveling around the world quickly, which I guess is assumably the intent of this question, even though like that's not like this is a different take for sure because we just asked if you were given a way to travel around Genshin, what would you like to see? We didn't say like what would do you think would be the fastest way to travel. So it's an interesting idea for sure. Oh, you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of Pokemon Snap. That's what
Yeah,
this
you're on a
guy's
conveyor
thing.
belt. You're on like a little train.
Yeah, yeah, riding a Howdah, which is the seat on the back of the Sumpter Bees, and then Beast moves on a set path. You can aim down sights on opportunity targets. Yeah, sounds about right.
So my
Oh my
idea,
god, they would totally do that in this game
they
as
could
an
totally.
event. Like, yeah.
It could definitely be an event. That would be fun. My idea for this is that there is still that wide open desert to the west. I, if you, I mean, if you get to the edge, it forces you back. But you can only travel through that desert on a Sumpter Beast. So you have to actually ride those things to be able to kind of pass the border. And then eventually maybe you go into that cinematic and then you transition to the new zone. But I feel like they could do that. Like there'll be restricted areas you can only get there through like special elevator or by special mount or animal or something special. Like it's another way of instead of having like a hard barrier or like a wall, like, oh, we can't do this. We're not prepared for that harsh terrain. Oh, hey, we have a thing that can prepare us for the harsh terrain. Now we can go there. That's better than just like a solid border. There's more creative ways to have a border in a video game. It could be like a soft barrier. It could be like a hard wall. It could be like a magic wall. There could be all kinds of reasons to do it, but that could be another thing that lets you go and traverse a new area. So this I like this idea. It can be implemented a different way, but I like it. All right, good community question. So I believe this will be a good time to bring up the next community question. So there's a lot of elements in the game, and we kind of know about that developer talk that there's no plans on having special interactions with Dendro and Geo or Animal. So how about we do this? How about we leave it to the community? What will be the new reactions with Dendro if now that we have evidence that you can amplify or like add on to the existing Dendro reactions, how about we come up with the ideas ourselves? And let's kind of come up with some way to balance and design it. So my question to the community is come up with your own elemental reaction. It could be for Dendro, or it could be with other elements as well. Because Dendro can interact with multiple elements at once. So what would you want? What would happen if you had lightning and Geo interact with wind? What kind of custom elemental reactions would you want to see in the game? Or you can even invent some new Dendro reaction as well. I want to know how we could use elements better. So what do you guys think? Come up with your own reaction and tell us how it works next time.
All right, everybody. Thank you as always for participating in our community question discussion. That wraps up the show for today. Thank you for listening. And if you have time, please leave a comment and a review. We'd always appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you're listening. Follow us on Twitter, once again, at Genshin Guys Pod. You can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/jside or Twitter at jside gaming and Kahi at Kahiyao, KahiyaO. And as always,
Ad Astra Abyssosk.
星と試練を目指せ
Enjoy.